There are times when life surpasses fiction, leaving indelible marks in people's memories and memories. On this occasion, I want to present to you 5 real plane disasters recorded at the worst possible moment, and I'm sure they will leave you with a lot to think about, each one stronger than the last. I assure you that even the last one will make you think about whether flying is safe or not. Let's start with the first accident. Tell me, do you think flying is safe? And what would you say to me if I told you that on the plane you were flying on, the co-pilot intended to crash the plane with all the passengers on board? What would you do? Write it in the comments, because this is the story of Germanwings Flight 9525. In just 8 minutes, this aircraft would begin a descent no one could stop. In just 8 minutes, a normal flight over the Alps would turn into a controlled crash. There would be no mechanical failure, no explosion, no sudden emergency. The danger would already be inside the cockpit. This is the story of Germanwings Flight 9525. March 24th, 2015. Germanwings Flight 9525 departs Barcelona, heading to Dusseldorf. The aircraft is an Airbus A320, carrying 150 people. The flight is routine, short, calm. Weather conditions are clear. The climb is smooth. Cruise altitude is reached without issue. Inside the cockpit are 2 pilots, experienced, certified, trusted. Then the captain leaves the cockpit briefly. The cockpit door closes behind him. It will never open again. Moments after the captain exits, the aircraft begins a steady descent. Autopilot settings are changed deliberately. Air traffic control notices the altitude loss and calls the cockpit. There is no response. Inside the cockpit, the co-pilot remains silent. Breathing is heard on the cockpit voice recorder. This is important because the aircraft is fully functional. There is no emergency to solve, no system to troubleshoot. The descent continues, uninterrupted. The captain desperately tries to re-enter the cockpit. He pounds on the reinforced door. He shouts. Passengers begin to scream as the mountains fill the windshield. The aircraft does not slow. It does not turn away. At 430 knots, Germanwings Flight 9525 strikes the French Alps. The impact destroys the aircraft instantly. No one survives. All 150 people on board are killed. The investigation reveals the cause was intentional action by the co-pilot, who had concealed severe mental health issues. The aircraft was airworthy. The weather was clear. The systems worked exactly as designed. Responsibility falls on systemic failures, inadequate mental health reporting, privacy laws preventing disclosure, cockpit security rules that trapped the crew outside. As a result, aviation procedures worldwide change. 2-person cockpit rules are introduced across multiple countries. This was not an accident caused by failure. This was Germanwings Flight 9525. Tell me, what recommendation would you give to the airlines to avoid these accidents? In the meantime, I want to share another story when a plane in mid-flight has problems landing and everything is recorded on the call. This is United Airlines Flight 232. A crippled DC-10 struggles to stay in the air. No hydraulic controls, no way to turn like a normal plane. On board, 296 souls depend on something that has never been tried before in aviation history. Below, at Sioux City Airport, dozens of emergency vehicles await a landing that could end in total catastrophe.
Roger, sir. Yeah, that's a closed runway. That'll work, sir. We're getting the equipment off the runway, and they'll line up for that one.
How long is it?
6,600 feet, 6,600, and the equipment's coming off.
Isolate this.
The aircraft approaches at high speed, wobbly. Impact is inevitable. But how did they get here? What happened at 37,000 feet that left this giant aircraft out of control? In the next few minutes, you'll hear the incredible and devastating story of United Airlines Flight 232. July 19, 1989, Denver Airport. United Airlines Flight 232 prepares to depart for Chicago. On board are 296 people, families, business travelers, children, all confident this will be a routine flight. None of them could imagine that within an hour, this plane would be written into history. The DC-10 lifts off normally, climbing into a perfect blue sky. The engines roar, passengers settle in, some read, some chat. But something unseen is traveling with them, a hidden defect in the tail engine, silently deteriorating for years. What no one knows is that this flaw will seal the fate of everyone on board. At 15:16 p.m., while cruising at 37,000 feet, the unthinkable happens. Engine number 2, mounted on the tail of the DC-10, explodes catastrophically. Shards of metal rip through the aircraft like invisible blades. The worst part isn't losing the engine, it's what comes with it. The debris severs all 3 hydraulic lines that move the wings and tail. In seconds, the aircraft is left with no flight controls. In the cockpit, the pilots pull on the yokes, but nothing responds. This giant of over 160 tons is now without rudder, without ailerons, without stabilizers. In the entire history of aviation, no aircraft in this condition had ever landed successfully. But before continuing with this story, if you like it, please subscribe. It would help me a lot to continue growing. Now, let's continue. In the cockpit, confusion reigns. The controls are dead. The massive aircraft simply won't respond. But Captain Al Haynes and his crew refuse to give up. They discover something incredible. By increasing power on one engine and reducing it on the other, the plane turns slightly. It isn't graceful, it isn't precise, but it's all they've got. Using only the engines, they manage to keep the aircraft in a fragile balance, but every maneuver is violent. The DC-10 lurches, climbs, and dives like a wounded bird struggling to stay aloft. On board, passengers feel the chaos. Some pray, others write farewell notes. The flight attendants, bravely, prepare for an emergency landing they know might be their last. And with every passing minute, the aircraft draws closer to its only hope, Sioux City. The DC-10 approaches Sioux City. There's no margin for error, no second chances. It's all or nothing. From the control tower, they watch in horror as the plane descends, wobbling, dangerously tilted to one side. The pilots do the impossible, using only the engines to line up with the runway. On board, the tension is unbearable. Passengers squeeze hands. Some cry silently. Captain Haynes gives the final instruction: brace for impact. The aircraft slams into the runway, but instantly the right wing collapses. The DC-10 careens violently, skidding out of control before erupting in a fireball. Wreckage scatters across the nearby fields. Emergency crews rush toward the scene. Amid smoke, fire, and screams, the desperate search for survivors begin. What you are about to hear is a recording and the actual video of the accident. Discretion is advised.
Roger, sir. Yeah, that's a closed runway. That'll work, sir. We're getting the equipment off the runway, and they'll line up for that one.
How long is it?
6,600 feet, 6,600, and the equipment's coming off.
Isolate this.
The impact was devastating, but against all odds, 185 people survived. Amid fire and wreckage, firefighters and volunteers risked their lives to save those who still breathed. The crash of United Airlines Flight 232 is remembered not only for the tragedy, but also for the extraordinary skill of the crew. Captain Al Haynes and his co-pilots turned the impossible into a chance for survival. The investigation revealed that a hidden engine flaw had destroyed all hydraulic systems, something never anticipated in aviation. From then on, the industry learned that even the unthinkable must be prepared for. For the survivors, that day marked a turning point. For the world, it was a reminder that even in the face of disaster, courage and humanity can bring a glimmer of hope. Because this is not just the story of an air crash, it's the story of a fight against the impossible. But although this accident was terrifying, the next one complicated things. Tell me what you would do if your plane crashed into a frozen river, and your only problem was not only water, but hypothermia. This is the story of Air Florida Flight 90. In just 30 seconds, a delayed winter departure would turn into one of the deadliest crashes in U.S. aviation history. Snow was already falling. Ice was already building. No one on board knew the danger was already on the wings. This is the story of Air Florida Flight 92. January 13, 1982. Air Florida Flight 90 prepares to depart Washington National Airport bound for Fort Lauderdale. The aircraft is a Boeing 737-200, carrying 79 passengers and crew. A powerful winter storm has covered the airport in snow and ice. Departures are delayed for hours. Temperatures are well below freezing. Inside the cockpit, the crew waits in line for takeoff. De-icing procedures have been performed earlier, but time is passing. Snow continues to accumulate on the wings and engines. The crew believes the aircraft is ready, but the conditions are changing faster than they realize. As the aircraft taxis, engine readings appear lower than expected. The captain questions the data, but misinterprets it. This is important because ice buildup is already affecting the engine pressure sensors. Inside the cockpit, subtle warnings are present. Takeoff thrust looks normal, but it isn't. The co-pilot expresses concern about the readings. The concern is dismissed. Outside, snow continues to fall heavily. The aircraft lines up on the runway. Everything appears normal, but lift has already been compromised. 4T3 to T0. Minutes 3 to 5. The takeoff roll begins. The Boeing 737 accelerates down the runway. Rotation speed is reached. The aircraft lifts off, but barely. Seconds later, the stall warning sounds. The wings, coated in ice, cannot generate enough lift. The engines cannot produce full thrust. The aircraft begins to sink. It strikes a bridge over the Potomac River, tearing apart vehicles below. Then it plunges into the icy water. The crash happens less than 30 seconds after liftoff. Cameras capture smoke rising from the frozen river. Emergency responders rush to the scene. Only 5 people survive the impact. 74 lives are lost. The investigation concludes the cause was pilot error, driven by failure to remove ice before takeoff, misinterpretation of engine instruments, decision-making under extreme pressure. The aircraft was capable of flight, but ice contamination destroyed lift at the worst possible moment. As a result, aviation procedures change permanently. Stricter de-icing rules, mandatory cold weather training, clearer engine performance checks. A winter delay turned into catastrophe. This was Air Florida Flight 90. And if you think that this accident was horrible, the next one will leave you thinking when a plane was loaded with more load than it could bear, crashing into the ground. This is the story of National Flight 102. In less than 1 minute, this aircraft would lose control completely. In less than 1 minute, a routine departure would turn into a catastrophic stall at low altitude. Cameras on the ground were already recording. No one realized they were about to document a fatal chain reaction. This is the story of National Airlines Flight 102. April 29, 2013. Flight 102 departs Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan on a cargo mission to Dubai. The aircraft is a Boeing 747-400F, carrying massive military vehicles and equipment. The crew is experienced. The weather is clear. Visibility is good. Takeoff performance calculations are completed. The aircraft accelerates normally. Everything appears routine. Inside the cargo hold, the load is restrained according to procedures. But one critical assumption will prove fatal. As the aircraft rotates and lifts off, the climb initially looks normal. Then, seconds after takeoff, the nose begins to pitch higher than expected. The aircraft struggles to gain stable climb performance. Inside the cockpit, the pilots attempt to counter the pitch with control inputs, but something is wrong. Unbeknownst to the crew, several heavy vehicles have broken free from their restraints. The cargo shifts violently toward the rear of the aircraft. The center of gravity moves beyond safe limits. The airplane is now unstable. The nose continues to rise uncontrollably. A stall warning activates. The pilots reduce thrust and attempt to regain control, but the elevators are no longer responding effectively. Critical control systems have been damaged by the shifting cargo. The aircraft reaches an extreme nose-up attitude. A full aerodynamic stall occurs. Ground cameras capture the moment the 747 freezes in the air, then drops. The aircraft rolls, descends rapidly, and impacts the ground in a fireball just beyond the runway. The entire sequence lasts less than 30 seconds. All 7 crew members are killed. The investigation reveals the cause was not weather, not engines, and not pilot skill. The crash was caused by inadequate cargo restraint, improper load securing, a catastrophic shift in center of gravity after takeoff. The aircraft was mechanically sound. The crew followed normal departure procedures, but once the cargo broke free, recovery was impossible. A single shift turned a routine takeoff into a total loss. This was National Airlines Flight 102. And finally, tell me what you would do if an endless fire started inside the plane you were on. Leave us your comment, because this is the story ValueJet Flight 592. In just 11 minutes, a routine domestic flight would become one of the deadliest disasters in U.S. aviation history. No distress call would fully explain what was happening. No warning would reach the passengers in time. The aircraft would not break apart on impact. It would fall silently into the darkness below. This is the story of ValueJet Flight 592, May 11, 1996. ValueJet Flight 592 departs Miami bound for Atlanta. The aircraft is a McDonnell Douglas DC-9 carrying 110 people. The flight is short, routine, uneventful. Weather conditions are normal. The climb is smooth. Nothing suggests danger. Below the passenger cabin in the cargo hold, several canisters of chemical oxygen generators are loaded as cargo. They are supposed to be empty. They are not. No one on board knows this. Everything appears normal. As the aircraft climbs through 10,000 feet, a fire ignites in the cargo hold. The oxygen generators activate, producing intense heat. Smoke begins to seep into the cabin. Passengers notice a strange smell. In the cockpit, the crew reports smoke and electrical problems. They request an immediate return to Miami. What almost no one notices is how quickly the fire is spreading. This is important because the DC-9 has no fire suppression system in the cargo compartment. The fire is already out of control. Thick smoke floods the cockpit. Visibility drops to near zero. Flight controls begin to fail as cables burn through. The pilots struggle to maintain control. Radar shows the aircraft descending rapidly. Then, without warning, the signal disappears. ValueJet Flight 592 crashes into the Florida Everglades at high speed. The impact is unsurvivable. The The crash site is swallowed by swamp and fire. There are no survivors. All 110 people on board are killed. The investigation reveals the cause: improperly handled oxygen generators illegally transported as cargo, lack of fire detection and suppression systems, systemic failures in maintenance oversight and safety culture. ValueJet is found responsible for widespread safety violations. The airline is grounded. Its name disappears from aviation history. The aircraft was flyable. The weather was clear. But a hidden fire, fueled by negligence, turned a normal flight into total loss. This was ValueJet Flight 592.